this is considered season 1 of Saved by the Bell on Netflix.
Right.
See, this is all the Netflix bitching coming back around.
Yep.
Right.
These are the only ones I don't have on DVD. So.
Yeah, me too. I don't believe this has ever gotten a DVD release.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's probably why I don't have them on DVD.
Exactly. Because let's be honest, Ryan, we would have bought them on DVD.
We would have been like,
available.
I have all the rest
Exactly. Of them. And it's also worth noting that this is the first episode of Good Morning Miss Bliss, but it is not the actual pilot episode of Good Morning Miss Bliss.
Right.
The actual pilot was a totally different animal that, from what I understand via Wikipedia and IMDb, aired like once on NBC, even though it was a Disney Channel show. It aired once on NBC and never was shown. Like, literally, they have never aired it anywhere else ever again. And it is available on YouTube in three different parts.
It's like the Star Wars holiday special of Saved by the Bell.
It is. If these are the prequels, the Star Wars prequels, it is the Star Wars holiday special.
It's been officially removed from canon.
And I love the theme song to the pilot because I watched on YouTube, and it's just 80s television theme songs at its greatest. I don't know.
It's such a weird effect. Like they're doing soft lady singing, and there's like charcoal or pencil. The YouTube quality is so bad. So it's like charcoal or pencil.
There's like these pixelated drawings.
And they're really soft, and they're like a fashion design woman, and it's kind of like the Aha video.
Yes,
visuals,
yeah.
But
it
it's not
move,
that
right?
dynamic. No, nobody fucking moves. It's a still lady, and she's just like got a backpack and going through college.
And in true 80s fashion, nothing about the song that's being sung has anything to do with the premise of the show. And I mean, it's nothing, Zack isn't in it, Screech isn't in it, but it's about a teacher named Miss Bliss, and she's a teacher, like a middle school teacher. And
in literally the first scene, she comes into class and says, "Hi, I got married this summer, so I'm actually Mrs. Davis, but in class I'm still called Miss Bliss." And this just boggles my mind to like the nth degree of the decision-making process in all of this to make that what happens in the pilot episode.
like one of the first line, like it's not the first line, but one of the first lines in the pilot. And someone thought that was worth wasting precious TV time on.
Well, somebody decided that. So I'm trying to wrap my head around it. So obviously they decided on the title Miss Bliss, like Good Morning Miss Bliss, and then they started writing the pilot, and then they decided, we want her to be married. But then they're like, but the title's Miss Bliss. How can she be Miss Bliss if she's married? She has to be Mrs. something. And so then it goes from there, and then she says, well, okay, she's Mrs. Davis, but she still wants to go by Miss Bliss at school.
But didn't you think it was interesting that she's married to Miles Davis?
Yeah.
I thought that was a good premise, like a white British lady.
So what it looks like here is that they're trying to make her a feminist character or not a feminist character. And I think what they're doing is
it kind of goes back and forth on that.
Right. And this one to push those buttons, like with their new, younger Jessie character. And so with her, they're trying to make her like. So if she was Miss Bliss and now she's going to be Miss Davis, that means she used to be happy. Saved by the Bell. Bliss equals happy. And now we're into her eventual crone decline because she's an old bird.
Davis is Latin for misery.
Yeah, and I did watch the entire pilot, unfortunately. I was just going to say, I watched this entire pilot. And to Carolyn's point, her husband is very scary because he becomes super controlling right away. And he's threatened by her job and such.
Yeah, it's just like fucking what we saw with the college years ending on Zack.
Yeah.
These are tales of women being taken over by men.
But so it's like Miss Bliss. It's like she goes into the classroom and she gets to be herself, and it's like this euphoria. That's why it's Good Morning Miss Bliss. It's like that's when she escapes having to be Mrs. Davis and having a terrible life.
Who she used to be.
Yeah, so wait, hold on. So one is that, isn't this the opener for all of Good Morning Miss Bliss, and they just changed the opening when it became Saved by the Bell 8th grade?
Possible.
I believe. I honestly don't know. I would guess that when they retooled it for syndication, they just inserted the Miss Bliss pictures into the Saved by the Bell music.
No, they had to. There's no way the Miss Bliss is like, when I wake up in the That's just not the... theme song for that show. No, the very most important thing about the Miss Bliss pilot is that Urkel is in it.
But do you know who else is in it? Which is important.
I don't care who else. It's
because
Urkel
this actually brings the podcast together. There's also Jonathan Brandis.
Oh, right.
And Brian Austin Green.
Oh, everyone's favorite stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think that when Jonathan Brandis guest starred on an episode of the College Years, he was like, I was on the pilot of like 3 iterations of this show ago, and it's still going? Like, what the fuck?
And then Brian Austin Green would have been like, so was I.
Yeah, they must have known each other. So this puts me into the mind of the good dimension where Jonathan Brandis was Zack Morris.
Yeah.
And he just went around doing nice things for people.
I believe Jonathan Brandis is basically the Zack of the pilot, in that he's the main character,
Yeah.
and he's having some sort of issue that Miss Bliss has to help him with.
His issue, he's like the rebellious kid who isn't listening to Miss Bliss, and it turns out the core of his problems is that his brother is dying, which is pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah, especially because then meanwhile the conflict of the episode is Miss Bliss's like asshole husband being like, you're too devoted to your job.
Yeah.
Leave your kids alone. And she's like trying to help Jonathan Brandis.
So is that why in this first episode, which is like the official first episode, her husband is dead?
Yeah, I guess so.
That's where I'm kind of like, is this really not canon, or did this just happen like the year before the actual?
Well, she said her husband's been dead for 3 years,
No,
so this might be like 3 years later. That would explain why it's all different kids.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. 2 other quick notes before we actually get to our actual episode. The other funny thing that cracked me up that's different about the pilot is that the final credit in the opening credits is like some other actor as Gerald Belding.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So I'm like,
that's so funny.
it still had Mr. Belding, but his name was Gerald. And just the idea that someone, when retooling the show, is like, you know what else didn't work? His name was Gerald. Let's call him Richard.
And he was like a fatter dude. So that means that was Mr. Belding's dad. And Mr. Belding's dad and Mrs. husband died at the same time.
They died together, yeah.
It was a suicide pact.
Did you see who directed the pilot?
Oh, I did not. Who was it?
It's Peter Boners with a Z. B-O-N-E-R-Z. Boners.
What?
You can look for yourself. I wouldn't make that up.
I would marry into that name. That's like one of the only names I would switch mine out for.
Would you like marry him and then get divorced 3 months later?
Probably.
Just
like,
carry
I'm
on the
keeping the
Boners
name.
name.
He gets it for his cocksure directing style.
Yeah.
I hear he's kind of a dick, though.
Yeah.
I hear he's a stand-up guy.
I heard that he's a purple-headed warrior.
I hear he's a little
right.
stiff, though.
I hear he's useless for most of the day.
I hear he gets like very excited for a few seconds, but then he's like really worn out for like the next half hour before he can perform again.
And then pee comes out of him.
I personally have a soft spot for Saved by the Bell. For every day after 4 p.m. Central, exactly, I would trade in my high school drama for what I wanted my high school drama to be. With the boys and gals at Bayside High. This also marks the debut of our teacher, Miss Carrie Bliss. True, Mr. Belding would come much later, but she would become the first ever female teacher role that other shows such as Boy Meets World would model their teacher turned principal, Mr. Feeney. And like Mr. Feeney, she really seems to show a lot of care and devotion to her students and offers many lifelong lessons straight out of the Danny Tanner Playbook. Now up to this point, a lot of this particular episode focuses on Zack's problems, which we will get back to later, as this will become the focus point of all of his shenanigans in Saved by the Bell. But until then, each particular episode of Good Morning Miss Bliss will dive into the lives of all of Zack's cast. Because whenever I was watching Saved by the Bell back in the day, they would always show reruns of Good Morning Miss Bliss. And I always would not know what the heck went on or what happened to Bayside. Where's Jesse, Kelly, Slater, Miss Bliss? What the hell is this? Since when Saved by the Bell was later sold into syndication, all individual assets, characters, and likenesses related to it were part of the package deal. And all of it was rebranded under the Saved by the Bell label. But before all that, here we are with the precursor to Saved by the Bell with Good Morning, Miss Bliss. As we begin our first day at school, as we walk the halls of Bayside. Well, I'm sorry, that's a JFK Junior High School.
Clothes and summer memories. No one is quite ready to give up those memories and get back to the classroom.
Oh, sorry, Indiana. Take it away, Kylie.
This episode opens to the first day of school at Bellevue High. Zack tells his friends that over the summer, he had a thing with a 9th grade girl named Karen up at the lake. He explained that he lied to her by saying that she was in 9th grade too. But just when he thinks he got away with it, Karen shows up to Bellevue as a new student, forcing Zack to continue to lie about his age.
Zack's love interest is played by none other than, I'm trying to say her name right, Carla Gugino. Where have I heard that name before? Ah, that Carla Gugino. Yeah, I know it's a kid show.
What are you saying?
Don't mind me. Just move along.
In the teacher's lounge, Miss Bliss is talking to her best friend Tina about the date she had that Wednesday night. However, the principal, Mr. Belting, asked Miss Bliss if she'd be willing to go to a CPA meeting for him that same night. She declines the offer, explaining that she can't due to her date.
So she is discussing her schedule with her wacky teacher friend Tina, and
yeah, Tina's like a older Alex.
Yeah, you're right. She's kind of like an older Alex.
That was the other one where I was like, oh yeah, this character.
The wacky sidekick.
In this very first scene, she's worried that she got a skunk-ass schedule from Mr. Belding as revenge for the terrible school play Rambo and Juliet that she put on last spring, which, first of all, it's Drink to Rambo.
Yep.
But then I'm like, when I wrote that down, I'm thinking, I wonder where this goes in this episode. And the answer is, it goes nowhere. And I feel like that's every plot involving Tina.
And I also wonder, in high school, is it possible to give someone a skunk-ass schedule? I don't even know what that means.
I wrote that. I'm like, do principals even assign teachers schedules? How does that work? I don't know.
We finally get some idea of what Belding does. But also, like, this is, like, true to Saved by the Bell right away. Like, that's a total Saved by the Bell idea. The principal gave me a bad schedule because I did Rambo and Juliet last year as the play.
So, like, them spending time with an adult sidekick is interesting. Or at least it could be. It seems like they kind of... Was this show supposed to be more like a Laverne and Shirley? Like, I can't imagine spending time with Mr. Belding.
I think there's usually, like, an adult plot and a kid plot, and they intersect. Isn't that right?
But they never are
that's
just hanging
usually
out.
the true.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Miss
I don't
Bliss
think...
doesn't, like, get onto Zach's bed and do
Although
finger
Zack
guns.
shows up at her house.
I know, it is pretty odd.
But there's a difference there in... It is odd. Let's be clear on that. But at least it's the, like, student that doesn't know better crossing that boundary and not the adult that should know better crossing the boundary.
Yeah.
Right.
So Mr. Belding compliments Tina, and then there's this weird bit where Miss Bliss is like, "Oh, I had a great summer. I came up with all kinds of new ideas," and Belding's like, "Great, now forget them."
Yeah.
And then we just move on. Like, I don't understand.
That's it, yeah.
And he asks her to do his job for him, which is to attend this PTA meeting on Wednesday. But she's like, "Oh no, I have a date." And then, if I didn't know better, I'd say that he gets, like, jealous of the fact that she's going on this date.
Yeah, there was an interesting kind
It
of
was
tension.
weird, and I guess the idea the writers were going for was that he didn't want to do this, so he's like, well, how serious is this date? But he's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why can't you do this? And I'm like, that's none of your business. You're like, that's nothing the boss should ask. Like,
It left me with the idea that Belding was single and had a thing for Miss Bliss.
But he says he's married in this.
But he says he's married in this, so maybe I didn't see this one. But, like, for a long time, kind of like David's whole, Mikey and Nikki are just Kelly and Slater. I thought, like, there's, like, tension between Belding and Miss Bliss, and they kind of want to get together, but they don't.
Yeah, it seems like he's horned up for her. But
Yeah.
I'm really, like, it's a hard time going from college to, like, baby middle school because no one gets to, like, finger bang in the dumpster anymore.
Sure, it's a totally different mindset.
although I will say, I don't like the Miss Bliss episodes, but going from college to this, there's something that warmed my heart just by having Mr. Belding show up.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
You're
just
just like,
like-
aw.
Creepy.
In homeroom, Miss Bliss tells Zack that he has been chosen to speak at the school-wide assembly as the 8th grade representative. Instead of exposing his secret, he resigns as a representative.
Can't resign. We spent too much money buying him votes.
Do you think this is the beginning of all assemblies just being about Zack?
The only question is if they've already been that way off
Yeah.
camera.
Well, see,
That is the
Right.
question.
I'm confused because they act like Zack being the 8th grade representative is a big deal that Zack was really wanting to do. Though we don't know why. Like, we don't
Right.
know why Zack wants to be a representative.
Yeah, because Screech actually has a pretty funny line when Zack says that he's resigning. He shout whispers to Mikey, "He can't resign! We spent too much money buying him votes!"
And when did this vote happen? This is the first day of school, mind you.
I mean,
Last
I guess last year it would have been for, like,
That's
incoming class reps.
That's kind of dangerous. What if Zack moves in the summer?
It's a very good point.
What do you think happens to the school when he does move? They
Yeah, I
just,
know, to
like,
California.
faint?
I just want to establish something that I don't think you understand. I know that this is 8th grade, and it's a different state, and everything is different. But this is still Zach Morris. That's all I have to say about it.
I will say that at least this assembly has the promise of being about more than Zack. Like, we only care about it for the way it impacts Zack and his attempt to continue lying to this girl. But theoretically, other people are going to get introduced at this assembly as well.
Yeah, I feel like there's...
like Screech, Lisa.
I feel like there's a way to get to this plot point without dealing with this class representative thing, just because it introduces something that we have no context for. We don't understand why it's important, why he is it, why him trying to give it up is a big deal, why... we don't understand.
Yeah, there's a lot of filler in this episode. Like plot things that seem like they're going to be subplots or like important to the plot but don't turn out to be really.
It's very much a Saved by the Bell episode.
Yeah, I guess. And apparently Zack has, as David said, compounded his lies and explained that he is in an experimental 9th grade that meets off campus.
So, what's...
That makes sense.
That story checks out.
Well, what would be worse? Trying to come up with all these goofy lies that are stacking them on top of each other and that's bound to just topple in on himself? Or him just saying he was held back a year? Like, what would be the biggest boner killer for the lady in question?
The first one, because held back a year means he's some sort of like bad boy. So then in another corner of the cafeteria, Belding sits down to have lunch with Miss Bliss and tries to guilt her into covering for him. And we find out that he has dinner show tickets the night of the meeting to see The King and I starring Telly Savalas.
So why does anyone have to go to this PTA meeting?
Yeah, I don't understand what the point of it all. It's clearly just to, I guess, establish a lot that she has a date on Wednesday.
Well, and if he can't get if he can just get a teacher to go, doesn't he have a lot of options?
Yeah, that was about my question. Why is it just between him and her?
Well, what other teachers have we seen?
Zack
Tina.
Morris.
Tina.
Tina, yeah.
He could send Tina.
Milo.
I mean, she's clear. We haven't met Milo yet.
Milo's not a teacher, though.
I
Right?
have no idea.
We don't know what he is.
I think he works in the office.
I heard he was a janitor on the fanfic.
Well, so he tries to guilt her into covering for him, and she's just like, whatever. And then we go back to the kids, and Nikki and Lisa are introduced to Karen, and that's when Lisa tells her about Cosmos, the hottest / only hangout in town, also known as the Protomax, though we'll never actually see
I don't
it.
think we ever see Cosmos, though, right?
Do you think it's like decorated with big space shapes?
God, you can only hope.
Yeah, like a big space shuttle or something.
Yeah, like Milky Way, stars, and they serve
Green
milky
aliens
shapes.
with like the antenna.
Yeah.
And then Nikki is once again a buzzkill when she asks Zack how long he thinks he can keep up this ruse with Karen. And then Zack somewhat humorously is like, with any luck until she graduates. And then we go through that whole... Miss Bliss comes over and is basically like, Zack, why did you resign from the whole stupid thing? and kind of sees through his bullshit immediately, which is a rare ability for most adults on this series of series.
That's why she's Miss Bliss.
Yeah. And then he basically just comes clean about the situation with Karen, and she tells him that he needs to tell her the truth, and he's like, okay, I'll do that. And we get that
her
whole,
point
like...
is, and it's actually a valid point, which was, Zack, you gotta tell her the truth now because she's gonna find out. And it's true because there's no way she's not gonna find out the truth, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this isn't gonna go on for a year.
Yeah, you're gonna get lucky to go through a week with this lie, so you might as well just come clean and hope for it.
Zack exits that scene fully prepared to tell Karen the truth, but then he meets her in the hallway, and she clouds his judgment with talk of unchaperoned swimming and skimpy bikinis.
Yeah, man. She's like, I have my special bikini.
The one she was too embarrassed to wear at the lake.
Because it shows off her ass.
I can't blame Zack one bit here, because if I was about his age, and some woman gave me that suggestion that I could be alone with her while she had some sort of skimpy bikini that she's too embarrassed to wear in public, like, I don't know what I'd do, but it wouldn't be pleasant.
You're not going to start telling her the truth.
Yeah, exactly. That's not when I'm going to be like, I might ruin this by telling the truth. I'd tell any lie that would get me to that pool.
Yeah.
Basically what it does is it, like, recontextualizes his timeline to, I only need to make this last until then, and anything I get after that is gravy.
Ah.
Oh, please.
Things are going smoothly for Zack, up until he reveals to Karen that Miss Bliss is a homeroom teacher, and she discovers that Zack has been lying to her about his age the whole time.
And then down the same hallway, Zack and Karen come down, lovey-dovey, arm in arm, and Miss Bliss is like, oh, I'm glad to see everything worked out. And then for no fucking reason whatsoever, Zack blows his cover, and he's like, see you in homeroom, Miss Bliss.
Man, you just had to make it through the week.
Right?
You couldn't even
And
make
then
it through a day.
And then, even worse, Karen doesn't even catch him on it. Before she even has a chance to say anything, he, like, turns around and is like, did I say homeroom? It's an experimental homeroom, see? And then that's when she's like, okay, how many fucking experiments are you in, kid? You're clearly lying to me.
He should have been like, homeroom. I thought you're a home wrecker, Miss Bliss. And then he runs
No, you should have
away.
said homeroom. I meant bone room.
And there is a little...
See you in the bone room, Miss Bliss. She's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Right after Milo's done with Screech. There's an
I love
insinuation.
He's a major shipper.
There's an insinuation that isn't quite clarified that she's more upset about the lies than the fact that he's in 8th grade, right?
Yeah, the gist I take from it.
Yeah.
Which I felt like they could have hammered that home a little more. Like,
Yeah, because it's kind of like it's a lesson type thing for kids to learn.
Also, though, because Miss Bliss asks her something and Zack answers for her, which he never learns not to do.
yeah.
I think that also made her mad.
Yeah.
She's like, "How are you doing, Karen?" And he's like, "Karen is fine."
I'll tell you how Karen's doing.
Yeah.
Later on, Miss Bliss is on her date and things are going really well. But then she goes into the kitchen and finds Zack waiting outside her window for him, and she gives him some much-needed advice about Karen.
Next scene, we are in the Bliss dining room. And I guess because we're going to save some money, this date's just happening at Miss Bliss's house.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is their date. I mean, this is a fuck date.
Yeah, I
Like,
know. That means Miss Bliss is DTF if she's just having her first date at dinner.
Yeah.
She's like, come over, and I'll make you dinner is a sex date.
Now, to be fair, if at any point Miss Bliss says no, the date should respect that and not just force himself on her. But
Right, and not be like, oh, you invited me over for dinner, what'd you expect?
yeah.
Why do we need to clarify that?
Yeah, dude.
Because we live in a society where some people need that clarified for themselves.
Wow. Okay.
Which is sad.
So for those out you there,
There's a
listening-
court order that I must
To all the rapers at home, hey, stop some of the rape, you guys.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's one to grow on.
But she's DTF.
This is where we
She
get.
just wants
Oh yeah,
some-
yeah.
Well, she hasn't got any fucking dong in 3 years.
No,
since
she
her
went to the
husband died.
sausage convention and nothing happened. She was sorely disappointed.
So she's just ready to just put it out to the world at this
She's
point.
disappointed she's not sore.
Yeah.
And we get a little bit, like a few shades of the original pilot in the idea that her job makes it difficult for her to date because he asks her to, like, come over to his house and he'll cook her gumbo. And she's like, oh, I have some such faculty meeting that night. And it's kind of funny because we find out her date's a doctor. And I feel like that would be an even bigger time conflict than being a teacher, particularly since, as we later in this episode, he has to leave early because he got paged to go to some medical emergency. But
Yeah, but she's a teacher who just lets her kids show up to her house anytime and invites
well,
them.
yeah, because then she goes to get dessert, and Zach's just like creepily watching through her window
so-
outside.
What was Miss Bliss planning on going back into the dining area with the apple pie and completely naked?
She went into the kitchen to strip. How long was Zack waiting out there for?
And like, it's a good thing she saw Zack there because
So this isn't getting you guys horned up?
not particularly, but this is basically a fuck date. And when you say you're gonna go get the dessert, isn't that what you expect? Maybe a whipped cream bikini or something.
Yeah, you're saying it's a good thing that she noticed Zach standing there before she stripped off her clothes and then just, like, smeared the pie all over her body and walked back into the dining room and was like, here's dessert.
That does sound pretty good.
It does.
So then Zach comes in and tells her that Karen dumped him. And for some reason she tries, I guess because of the earlier tension about her job or something, she keeps Zach's presence a secret.
Yeah, my note is just tell the date what's happening.
Just be like, one of my students came by and I need to help him for a few minutes.
Now let's be clear, this is a student who was dealing with an issue, and her advice to him was that you shouldn't lie because they're going to find out eventually. And then, right when he shows up, her first reaction is to start lying to her date nonstop.
Yeah.
So
And they
this
never
is
make a
pretty
point
much-
of that.
So this is pretty much the end of her tenure as an authority.
Yeah.
I like though that the Zack plot, like, that's the end. It's just that he fucked up and he has to learn to not be such a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And then she starts talking about her dead husband, and it's sort of relevant, like actually sort of a character building thing.
I like
Yeah.
when the ghost shows up and he's like, "Woo."
He's like, put on a whipped cream bikini.
This shit's hot. I want to see it.
So yeah, we get a little routine where she goes back to her date, but's too distracted to be. He's trying to be all like romantic and DTF, but she's distracted by Zach in the other room.
Back, he thought,
oh no, totally. Yeah. So then,
he was like, if I knew it was going to be that kind of party, I'd stuck my dick in the mashed potatoes.
So then she goes back to Zack and teaches him about heartache, where we learn about her dead husband, and it's all underscored by twinkly music, so we know that this is the lesson part of the episode.
That was rough, yeah.
Yeah. And I guess we'll have to see moving forward. I can't remember if, like, all the Miss Bliss episodes shoehorn in the, like, twinkly music lesson, or if that was just this one.
Yeah, I couldn't remember either.
I mean, they're definitely, I seem to think they're more, like, lesson learned than the later Saved by the Bell, but I don't think they're ever quite so obvious about it.
Well, she's
and then,
also like, Zack, you're going to have to deal with a lot of heartache as you grow up, and I'm like, boy, are you wrong, Miss Bliss.
You're going to only ever have one girlfriend.
And you're going to have the most charmed life of anybody ever. Your life is going to be pretty awesome. So I wouldn't really...
And then in 2008, you'll collapse the economy.
Her date comes in to leave, and they do that whole thing where Miss Bliss thinks he's mad, but really he got Paige to go to the hospital, but she's too busy talking to let him explain that. So then she makes a bigger deal out of everything than she probably needed to.
Well, but he does, like, walk in and he's like, I'm gonna leave. And then he just starts leaving, which is weird.
Yeah. And he seems kind of cool about everything, but we're never going to see him again.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, not until he's Carl Winslow's boss.
Right, exactly.
But then Zack shits on Cajun food, and I don't know, Cajun food's alright.
Yeah, Cajun food's good. And then I do like that she makes, when she's giving her whole spiel to Brian about, you know, this is my job and it doesn't end at the end of the school day and kids are always dropping by my house. And I'm like, why are kids always dropping by your house?
Why do they even know where she lives?
Well, that was my other question. Like, how does Zack even know where she lives?
And if they were always dropping by, wouldn't they just be comfortable with knocking on the door and not just standing staring in the kitchen window?
He knew she had a date, so he was hoping to catch a glimpse of the infamous Miss Bliss dessert pie.
I know, so do you think that he was just there to jerk off at her and she saw him? Like he was trying to ease his sadness by peeping?
I think he's there jerking off most nights.
Oh, that's probably true.
Yeah. And this is, I mean, we'll see Zack at her house again in later episodes, and it's just like, that's just a thing that happens.
Well, and then he gets pie, which is also a good reason.
Yeah, so then after she says goodbye to Brian, she goes back, and Zack is feeling better, and he compliments her pie.
Yeah.
She does have a very nice pie for a woman her age.
Right? And to your point, Ryan,
She does ping pong pretty far. Or the ping pong balls.
She's been doing her kegels.
You know, the lesson is just, heartache sucks, so you're gonna have to deal with it, and there's no Zack wins Karen back or comes out ahead anyway or whatever. It's just he fucked up and he's gonna have to learn from that.
I feel a little bad for Zack missing out on that bikini party.
I know, that's hard.
Yeah, that's a tough.
That's why you should tell the truth.
So Zack has learned an important lesson. And yeah, that's about it for Saved by the Bell Reviewed. I am Austin Gorton, and I am off to put on the bikini I was too embarrassed to wear at the lake last summer.
Yeah.